Most Qiyana players stick to 3 basic combos, but there are actually more than 30 that you can use. Knowing when to use each one is what separates the mediocre Qiyana players from real high elo ones. My name is Edo and I spent over 4,000 hours playing Qiyana, coached over 700 Qiyana players, and today I'll be sharing every single Qiyana combo from easy to expert level difficulty. Qiyana can cancel her auto attack animations with her abilities. Starting off, we'll take a look at cancelling your auto attack with the E. If you look at the auto attack animation, you can see that it takes quite some time to go through. You can now reduce this time in half if you press E in the middle of your auto attack. That way the auto attack comes through quicker and you can execute your combos faster. For the second animation cancel, we are cancelling Qiyana's auto attack again, but this time we are doing it with our Q. So instead of using the auto attack normally, which takes quite some time, we can reduce the time of the auto attack by pressing Q. Qiyana's W is usually used in the middle of a lot of combos. You can cancel this dash animation of Qiyana's W by pressing E onto an enemy target. Qiyana's ultimate can be cancelled to make it absolutely unpredictable. You can either do this forward to close the distance, or you can do this to the side to make the direction of it unpredictable. This can be done by simply pressing Alt, and right after the ult animation starts, you press flash to redirect it. This is extremely important to surprise enemies and make your intentions unclear for your opponent. Qiyana's Q can also be cancelled by simply using flash right after you press Q. This can close a bigger distance and it can make it very hard to react to. This is essential in a lot of combos and a lot of scenarios where you have to surprise your opponent to get a kill. Buffering your abilities is a very important concept in League of Legends. This is also true for Qiyana. In essence, buffering simply means that you can press an ability and then after you flash, the ability gets casted automatically. So if I press E onto this dummy and then press flash, my E will automatically come off. It's much faster and it increases combo speed. Now, after we got the Qiyana combo fundamentals out of the way, we can move on to the trading combos. The first trading combo is especially useful if your opponent is shoving you into the tower. If he stands close to the tower, what you can now do is you can use grass Q, walk up to your opponent and then auto attack and then WQ backwards. That way you can proc Electro or simply get damage off if you are running Conqueror. You stay full HP after the combo and it's very easy to get a small advantage in the lane. The next trading combo does essentially the same thing, but it makes it possible for you to stay completely invisible for the entirety of the trading pattern, which makes it very easy to play specific lanes that need vision to actually land abilities onto you. The first two combos could be used in a great way if you are level 2, because you didn't have to use your E in order to proc your electrocute. The next one that I'm about to show is amazing if you have your E skilled up. If your opponent mistethers your E, you can EQ them and then auto attack WQ backwards. That way you can get a positive trade, deal even more damage and get out almost full HP. The next combo uses our second animation cancel that we talked about, which is the Q animation cancel. You want to E on your opponent and then auto attack and use the Q in the middle of your auto attack. If you do this fast enough, you can get your auto attack through quite quickly and the combo gets casted very fast. This is especially useful into mages and immobile opponents because they cannot really dodge your Q if you target it properly. Ideally, you want to use your grass to run it out in a smart way after using this combo. E, auto, Q, and then stand on the edge here and then walk out. There are only a few poke combos on Qiyana specifically, but those combos that exist are very important to use. Starting off, we have a very simple one, where you want to press Q and then instantly W in order to get your sudden impact proc. As you can see, sudden impact did get proc because I used a dash before my Q actually arrived. The next combo includes the exact same principle, it's just that you are using the Q that you just picked up. So instead of only using QW and then walking out, you would be using QWQ. That's a nice little trading combo, but you need to be aware of your mana because you now have to wait for your entire full next rotation of abilities. The next combo is very good if people are trying to shoot abilities at you while you are queuing them. So what you can do in that scenario is you can queue them and then E away. This procs sudden impact and it basically makes you leave the trade with being full HP. This is especially good if you are playing into something like a Lux or maybe a Zed and they try to throw abilities in that exact moment. The next combo is great if your opponent is trying to play safe and he's standing pretty far back. You can E onto a minion and then QWQ. Then you can run it out. What you can also do is you can use EQ and then just W out if you want to hold your next element for the next rotation. Imagine that you are trying to get out of a sticky situation. You are standing next to your opponent and you want to provide some damage, but you want to get out at the same time. In that case, what you would do is you would auto attack EQ and then WQ and just run into this direction. Since your opponent is rooted, you just dealt a lot of damage and you also made a lot of distance for yourself in order to get out of the situation. The next combo starts in a very similar way. If you are standing close to your opponent, or there are maybe even more than just one opponent, what you can now do is you can auto attack the opponent and then ER and then QWQ backwards and then run it out. Imagine there are 3 or 4 people standing here. If you can manage to ult all of them and hit both of your Qs, you will get out and you can set up a fight for your team while surviving the whole situation. The next combo is especially useful if you are diving your opponent. It's a bit faster than the first escaping combo that we talked about, and it can also just be used to cancel your animations in a quicker way. So you would use auto attack Q to have the first animation cancel, and then you would WEQ out. That way you can get out of the tower range and you can deal a lot of damage in a much quicker way and still get out, surviving the whole thing. The next combo is great for a simple all-in if your opponent is standing close enough to your E and you want to kill them. You EQ the dummy, then you ult and auto attack in the middle of the air, and then you follow up with WQ auto attack. The next combo comes in very handy if your opponent is standing too far away for you to E them, especially if they are immobile mages, for example, because after you use this combo, people are rooted and you can basically guarantee your ult. In order to use this combo properly, we need to use the E buffer that I talked about in the beginning. E the dummy, then you flash Q, and then you use the same combo I explained before. R auto attack, WQ auto. If your opponent can still use abilities while being rooted, this is not the best combo to use, because after you use your EQ and they are rooted, they can still use, for example, Vladimir Pool, they can for example use Sylas E, or maybe even Cassiopeia ult, making it really hard to follow up with your combo. For that, we have a different combo that I'll be showing next. If your opponent has an ability that can be used while being rooted, for example Vladimir Pool or Cassiopeia ult, it makes sense to use E ult instead of EQ starting off the combo. In this case, you would be using E ult auto attack and then following up with QWQ auto attack. Next up, we'll be using the same exact combo but with buffering your E with the flash. This is especially useful if your opponent is standing pretty far away and you need to reach them by using flash. For this one, you'll be using E flash R auto attack and then following up with QWQ auto. Moving on, we have the next combo, which is extremely useful if you are running away from enemies, but you know that you have kill window, and if the root is really effective into the enemy champion. Examples for this are Katarina because she can't jump away while being rooted, and Fizz because he can't use E while he's rooted. So ideally you want to run away and then Q, grab W, and then ER auto attack, Q auto. Another iteration of this combo specifically is that you can use the Q flash buffer that we talked about in the first chapter. Therefore, you are pressing Q flash, then grabbing W and then using ER auto attack Q. There are moments where your opponent is standing perfectly aligned with your ult. If you would E right here, what would happen is that you would actually redirect your ult and it wouldn't hit anymore, because the angling is awkward. In this case, you would use R first and then follow up with the rest of your combo, looking exactly like this. R auto attack, QW EQ auto. Next up, we will be using the R flash buffer that we talked about in the beginning. If you are standing too far away from your target, hit this specific combo. You can use R and then flash to first of all make it harder to react to and also cover more distance. You would start off by using R, then using flash right after, using one auto attack and then following up with QW EQ auto. Your ultimate ability can also be used to redirect your ult in a very creative way to hit opponents. Right here, there is no way I'm hitting this dummy if my opponent is running away. So instead of using R onto them, I can use R into this direction. And after using R, I can flash to the right in order to redirect my ult. And then follow up with a QW EQ auto. This can be used in many different creative ways in order to hit an ultimate when it seems impossible. The Baron Pit is probably the best spot for Qiyana to teamfight. There are multiple ways how you can execute this. The first very important step is that you can jump over this thick wall right here, right before the Baron Pit. Ideally, you would be queuing forward, grabbing grass again, and then you can either use grass once more, and then E-ult, or what you can also do is you can simply grass Q over, grab grass, and then ER, hold your grass, and when the stun is over, you can grass Q again in order to just delay even more time for your teammates. There are multiple ways how you can execute this. There is no wrong or right here, it really depends on the situation. But this specific trick is extremely important when playing on this side and trying to collapse onto the Baron Pit. The same thing goes for this specific spot here on the Baron wall. What you can do is you can grass Q over, then grab rock or ice and then ER your opponents in order to get a beautiful ult off and actually beat your opponents. Next up, we'll talk about the Dragon Pit. When it comes to contesting drakes, there are three main spots that you can use as Qiyana. The first one is in the edge of this wall right here, because you can now Q over, you can grab ice or rock, and then you can E onto these opponents and ult them. The next very important spot with Qiyana is this wall right here, because it allows you to Q over the wall, grab grass, and then also E-ult your opponents in order to get a beautiful ult off. The last very important spot for Qiyana is this spot right here. There's this thin part of the wall that you can easily jump by using Q forward and then grabbing either rock or ice again. And then you can ER your opponents and wait out the stun. After the stun, you can for example grab grass again or just continue playing the fight normally. The next combo is great if your opponent is below half-life and you can one-shot them and they are standing in your E range. Therefore, you can simply use EQ, WQ auto attack. You can use the exact same combo if your opponent is standing too far away and you want to EQ them initially. Therefore, we are using the E buffer that I was talking about in the beginning of this video in chapter 1. You want to E the dummy, then use flash Q and then WQ auto attack. For this next combo, we are using Qiyana's W animation cancel. If you don't know how to do the W animation cancel, make sure to check the first chapter in order to find out. Use this combo, you want to use your Q and then your W, and this W you want to cancel with your EQ. So this is how the final product looks like. You finish the combo off with one auto attack, and that secures you a lot of kills in the mid game. And for all of those who need it a little bit slower, here's the combo slowed down a little bit. You can use this exact same combo by buffering your flash as well if your opponent is too far away. Therefore, you would be using Q, then flash, and then following up with WEQ. It's the same combo, just instead of starting out with only Q, you are using Q flash. I'll show it a bit slower so you can follow. If you are playing against Lissandra specifically, there's one very nice niche combo that you can use in order to make it impossible for her to react. You E onto this minion, you Q the dummy, and then you W Q flash. Against some champions, you have to execute a combo this fast. Your opponent is standing very far away, you can EQ flash and then WQ. This is used to cover insane distances if your opponent is standing very far back and you are very sure about hitting your Q after using EQ flash. Everything I just showed you is completely useless if you mess up in game. That's why in the next video I'll show you exactly how I warm up to make no mistakes, not a single screw up when playing Qiyana in my ranked games. If you want to execute like a true high elo one trick, make sure to watch this next video right here. Thanks a lot for watching, I'll see you in the next one.